Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to On Texas Football and welcome back to the Winning Drive. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Pleased to be joined by fellow lifetime Longhorn, young prodigy CJ Vogel, and our own coach, former high school football coach at Vernon, Capel, Brownwood, Belton, Rotan. Also played college football at Abilene Christian, coached there as well, and was on the staff at the University of Texas for multiple head football coaches. And now you can catch his work at boom, right there, ChipleyRanches.com. What's going on, Coach? How you doing?
It's Coach It's all good, man. All good. Just hanging out. Not a lot of stuff going on. Seems like I need a little more real estate business, so give me a call.
Yeah, you need a ranch. You know who to reach out to. All right, so hope everybody's doing well out there. Thank you to everybody out there who's joining us, no matter where you're joining us from. I really appreciate it. What's up, CB? Appreciate all you guys for joining us. You know how it works. Use Winning Drive, but you drive the show. Any direction you want to go. Super chats jump to the front of the line. You can interrupt the show at any time. We'll try to answer as many questions and comments as we can throughout the show. We'll discuss more about the player availability. Had the player availability yesterday with Anthony Hill and Colin Simmons, Michael Taft. We'll talk about some of the things those guys brought up and talked about. Also, there's been a report, now multiple reports. Texas is expecting to have one of the kind of highest rated players in the transfer portal on campus sometime in the very near future, a tight end by the name of Jack Andrews, who is coming out of Cal. So we'll talk about that a little bit and what Texas could be looking for, what else they could be looking for in the transfer portal. There's also an All-American list from Pro Football Focus I want to get to. CBS Sports has dropped a kind of top 150 players out there in the 2025 season of college football, ranking them all. So we'll talk about some Longhorns that are getting some love there. All right, but first, let's start off before we get to player availability and get into some spring football news, notes, and nuggets. The transfer portal, it give it, then it take it away. And looks like the Longhorns are looking to cash in via the transfer portal. They got Emmett Mosley already at the wide receiver position out of Stanford last week. But it looks like, guys, that the tight end may be the next position that they're zeroing in on, that they need to bring in reinforcements. And I think that's a great idea because right now I think they're close to being in a dire situation at tight end. Not because anybody's fault. They just lost, of course, Gunnar Helm, who had the greatest single season for a tight end in Texas football history. He just had an injury at tight end to Jordan Washington, so that's stunted a little bit his development here in the offseason. And then you got a lot of unproven commodities, guys like Spencer Shannon, unproven. Then the rest of the guys coming in, yes, really high ceilings, a lot of upside, but they're young and also unproven, haven't been able to really prove that and show themselves yet at the college level. So, CJ, I'll throw it to you first. I think it's priority, number one, actually, that they get themselves a feature tight end in the transfer portal, which is tough.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, and we talk about wide receiver. Texas has addressed that with Emmett Mosley. You can talk about defensive line. Texas has done that already with 3 additions in the winter portion. But tight end, top of mind for me. And Texas is looking to address that. Obviously, there was the report yesterday that came out that Jack Andrews is expected to visit Texas. We'll have more, obviously, when that is expected to happen and whatnot. But look, Indiana's a big threat in that recruitment. His quarterback over at California was Francisco Mendoza, who's off to the Hoosiers next year. So there's some ties to Indiana at the moment. I'm thinking that when Texas sees a guy in the portal that they desperately need and it's a position of need, they're going to do what it takes to make sure that should he visit Austin, he leaves committed, right? We've seen that time and time again. And when, if, where he does visit the Longhorns, that should be a good indication of how things are going for Texas on that one. I'll say this, though. Tight end, I think long-term, I think you look at 2026, you say, wow, this room is going to have plenty of talent. But it's, again, one of those positions where you don't want to have a lot of inexperience and a lot of youth. So Texas right now, no career catches in the room. I'll continue to kind of harp on that a little bit right now. No one right now that you know of can be a plus blocker, right? You've heard of and hope to see it again for Spencer Shannon next year. You've heard some good things about Amari Winston so far as well. But right now you just haven't heard that room is going to be a plus. So you got a 2-year window with Arch Manning. Hopefully you got to maximize that. And right now Texas making sure that they're not leaving any stone unturned, making sure that they're in the race at the very least for Jack Andrews.
Hey, Coach, we brought up the Sark quote. He said that tight end's the second most important position in his offense behind quarterback. Kind of hard for some people to fathom that because, wide receiver, running back, left tackle. Why do you think Sark says that? You've watched his offense enough. What makes the tight end position in his mind the second most important position on his offense behind quarterback?
Well, if you look at the tight ends that he's had, they've all been playmakers, and they haven't been these big, huge, bruising Penn State type guys. They've been guys that are more hybrid type, although I'm sure he'd like to have a little more size in there. But, just look at Gunnar Helm and his production. And as you said, probably the greatest season for a tight end in school history. That says it all right there.
Yeah.
The tight end, if we have the right person there, is and will continue to be a very important part of our offense. I think we've got talent there. What we don't have is that proven commodity, as you were talking about. And so when you're trying to build a roster to win a national championship, you can leave no stone unturned. You have to make sure that there's not a fall off or not a position that could make you vulnerable from reaching your goals, which is playing for the national championship and obviously winning one. So you've got to recruit with that mindset. You've got to recruit with that attitude that we cannot go into the season with a room that doesn't have the depth and doesn't have the experience or guys that at least are at the verge of breaking onto the scene with, lots of reps in practice and so forth. And, Jordan Washington may be that. Is that his name? Jordan Washington?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's a friend of mine's wife. Who was on staff, Kevin Washington, who was the director of development. His wife is Jordan. But anyway, I digress. So I just think, it's a huge part of his offense. And is this the Cal tight end we're talking about that was a former walk-on?
Yes.
And now he's the number one tight end in the transfer portal?
Yeah, coach 1,000 yards in 2 years of play at Cal.
I love that.
He's really
I love
good
that. And with no other threats, apparently, in that offense, really to, nobody to take the lid off the coverage or anything. So, I love those stories. And Texas seems to do well with stories kind of like that. Occasionally have a walk-on that, comes in and becomes almost the face of the program. Certainly has been the case defensively. And, having a guy with two years of eligibility left could really shore up our deficiencies that we may or may not have at the tight end. But, you just can't go into the season with hope. You know what I'm saying? You've got to have somebody proven, instead of hoping somebody can step up, hoping someone can get some quick on-the-field experience and fill that need on our football team. As you said, the second most important position on the field for Sark. So it's a position that certainly they're going to take care of or do everything they can to take care of. And I've seen the film on the young man at Cal, and he certainly looks like a guy who would fit into what we're doing and could really thrive in this offense, especially with other threats taking the heat off of him.
Yeah, and better quarterback play, right? He did. I don't even know the quarterback from Cal. I haven't looked at him, but I'm assuming that Archie is a better quarterback, and I'm assuming the Sark system is a better system. And even for tight ends, because it's been real, like you just brought up, Coach. Gunnar Helm and JT Sanders back-to-back years, really productive seasons at that tight end positions. Very different skill sets for the tight end position. It shows you that in Sark's offense, I can't imagine this guy would. I know he's got other options. You brought him up, CJ, but man, looking at the tight end position the last couple of years at Texas, looking at that productivity, and then visualizing yourself catching passes from a Manning in a Sark offense. I don't know. I would have a hard time if I'm putting myself in this young man's shoes. How do you turn that down? This should be an easy sales pitch for Texas. Is kind of my point. Like they should be able to close this one. And like you said, Coach, they really, really need it. So the tight end position right now, I think number one priority Texas looking at in the transfer portal. Coach, is there any other? We know Texas isn't done here. Actually, there's some at least rumors out there. That because of this house settlement thing, guys, that could be on the horizon. We don't know. It could be settled in the next week or so.
Yeah.
All right. That players and some of these programs alike may try this particular transfer portal acquisition cycle to really spin it up. or to really, ratchet it up a notch. Because if the House settlement does come through, well, there will be parameters and there'll be, caps and, all this other stuff that will try to make it more of an even playing field. Right now, it ain't. It's the wild, wild west. You spend the most, you can get the most. I almost wonder if, that's what I said. That's why a lot of the players now are deciding, hey, this may be the last transfer portal cycle for us to cash in. And I wonder if some of the schools might be thinking that too and being aggressive.
I think you're right. And, we're certainly seeing that in Tennessee. We'll see, if and when he ends up. I know what was it, Colin Cowherd said, UCLA was going to be that spot. Yeah. We'll see where Tennessee goes for their replacement, right? Because they're not going to bring Nico back. And right now, I think a team up I-35, the Baylor Bears might be having a fight to hold on to their quarterback here. So we'll see what that means for them. But point being, Rod, it is, kind of the Wild West when it comes to NIL. And this is probably going to be one of the last opportunities that it is the Wild West. And then now you're about to see, the railroad run through the West, right? Now you're going to see towns popping up. Laws have spread out to the West Coast, Now there's going to be some sort of parameters. And
good job.
Yeah, that's my history note for
the day. I like it.
But point being, I mean, it's the final time that if you're a college athlete and you feel like your market is there for you to make a lot of money in college, you probably throw your hat in the ring and see what kind of offers you got, whether fans like it, whether coaches like it, whether players like it. It is that last opportunity. So we'll see. Right now, I can say this on the Texas front. I've yet to hear really anything more than a couple names that's come to interest in leaving and going into the portal. So I think that's a great plus for the Longhorns. Of course, big departure season for the NFL and graduation, retaining all these guys for depth purposes means a whole lot. But right now, I think Texas is going to be in really good shape in terms of retention for the spring roster.
Yeah, I didn't even really think about that. But, I haven't heard much about Texas players, with the few sources I have, not as many as CJ, of players being disgruntled right now. Seems like everybody's rowing in the same direction. Row the boat. All right, so we'll get to some of your questions. I know you guys got some questions out there. We'll also get to the player availabilities. I want to talk a little bit about something that the players, or at least a common theme that keeps coming up with these player availabilities and even the media availabilities with Sark. But before we do any of that, let's thank our one of our sponsors. Let's thank our friends over at Flat Creek Estate Winery. That's right, folks. Flat Creek Estate Winery, just minutes from downtown Austin. And they've won award after award this year for their vintage wine, Super Texan. Super Texan, now available at your local specs. They also have a display at our local Central Market here in Austin. I was very happy to see that the good word is getting out about Flat Creek wine. But not only is the Super Texan award winning, so it is really good. That's right. My family got a chance to enjoy it over the holidays. So my mother-in-law loves it. My mom loves it. My wife loves it too. They also have other great. There are other great selections like the Pinot Grigio. It's really good. The Rosé is very, very refreshing over at Flat Creek. So check out flatcreekestate.com and you can go see there are many selections there. But not only do they produce some of the best wines on the market, but Flat Creek is also a gorgeous venue with barbecues and wine tastings every single weekend. It's perfect for a day date with your significant other or simply a weekend getaway with your significant other. That's Flat Creek Estate Winery. As a matter of fact, I got a chance to tour the facilities. They are fantastic. I would love to get back there. Having, a young 18-month-old has kind of put a wrench in our plans in terms of doing stuff like that. But folks, trust me, you go out there and enjoy it, Flat Creek. You'll want to enjoy it for years to come. Had a member of the own Texas football family get engaged out there as well. So no matter how special the occasion, our friends at Flat Creek Estate Winery, they can accommodate any of your plans. So that's flatcreekestate.com. All right. Let's get back to some of the questions here before we move on and talk about the player availabilities. This one is from RW. Says, Coach, is your little cousin kicker going to transfer to Texas? Is this a Mason Shipley kid?
Yeah.
Kinfolk?
Yeah, I don't have any idea. He's not a cousin that I know of, although he's from Liberty Hill, which is just right down the road from Burnett. But I don't think he's any relation. I don't know. I mean, kicker, come on, man.
Oh, okay. You said it's not athletic enough to be one of the.
No, I didn't say they weren't athletic. I'm just saying, no kin.
No kid folk there. All right. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know CJ has been pounding the table even before this transfer portal window. You probably were doing it at the last window thing. Hey, why wouldn't you go get a better upgrade at kicker if you can do it? Texas has a heated competition right now at kicker with Bert Auburn and Will Stone. But you still feel passionately, CJ, that if you can do it, if you can upgrade, what you waiting on? I think you're muted, CJ.
My bad.
Yep.
Yeah, right. I agree 100%. Look, you got a 2-year window with Arch Manning, and you're going to want to maximize that because what you have down the road, whether it be with Trey Owens, whether it be Dia Bell, whether it be KJ Lacey, I think it's safe to assume that there's no guarantee that it's going to be Arch Manning, right? And so I think with Arch, you have to make sure that you go all in for both years. And
I agree with that.
I think with kicking, based off of what we saw a year ago, that can't be something that hinders your ability to win games in clutch situations. I know that we're expecting Arch to, be that guy, to score a lot of touchdowns, to perhaps not even be in a position where you need a kicker. But you're going to play some good teams, and those 3 points are going to add up at the end of games. You're going to need a guy that you can rely on and not. And here it is. If you don't, you might be in a similar position as last year where you have an SEC championship trophy just walked right through your hands.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. If kicking comes back to haunt them this year and they don't upgrade, Longhorn fans will never let them hit the end of it. You lose a game next year, next season because of kicking, Sark will never hit the end of it from Longhorn fans. And honestly, you can't blame Longhorn fans for that because I think most of them agree with your opinion, CJ. Here's a question from Ben, I see. Do we know who our fastest wide receiver is? That is a good question. I'm actually curious. Who do I think the fastest wide receiver is, Coach? Who is the speed demon of this crew? Hell, I don't think we all thought it was Bond with the last crew, and turns out it was Matthew Golden. Both of them can run, but it turns out Matthew Golden was a little faster when he came to the 40. Who's the fastest wide receiver?
It may be a freshman, CJ. Do you think?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. It might be the Jamie French.
Might be right. Okay. Yeah.
That's interesting because, look, I know Ryan Wingo was a guy that out of high school might have surprised people with his speed. I'm not sure what DeAndre Moore's in track speed was out of St. John Bosco, but Wingo might have a case. And I think that's kind of sneaky given his size. So,
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is it's weird to say this because they're not, but this is the slowest wide receiving core Sark has had because he had X-Man from day one, and X-Man he's the fastest wide receiver in the history of college football. So, or at least on the record, I'm sure somebody can go back and find some before that, but you get my point. And then last year, you had Golden, you had Bond. A lot of guys. Hell, even Silas Bowden could run. He looked like he could move a little bit. So you had a lot of guys with elite speed this year. I think the difference is now we have the guys are just bigger.
Mm-hmm.
This is your biggest wide receiving core you've had in terms of height and length, right? That crew you just brought in, Khalid Lockett, Jamie French, both of them over 6 foot. If you go look at let's go back to 2022. Look at the last 4 acquisition cycles of receivers, and we include transfer portal and traditional recruiting. In 2022, you had 1 wide receiver you brought in over 6 foot. 2023, 1 wide receiver you brought in over 6 foot. It was 1. I think you had 4 in each of those cycles, and only 1 of those guys was over 6 foot. In the last 2 recruiting cycles, 3 out of 7 over 6 foot, and 4 out of 5 over 6 foot. Something's going on.
Yeah, pretty remarkable, huh?
Right? Like, that's a shift. They got these numbers too. That's pretty obvious. And to me, I think, Coach, a lot of it is they know they about to face teams, or they're gonna face more teams, especially deep you go into the playoffs. I did the research. The better teams play more man-to-man. The anecdotal belief is that bigger receivers, especially versus press, bigger receivers have more success or are more effective targets in man-to-man situations. Also, another theory may be, and by the way, the Ohio State 32% man coverage rate, Oregon's around 31%, Clemson's around 34%, Notre Dame's over 50%, Penn State 38%. You get it, right? You're gonna face some teams. You're gonna face some teams that can play man to man, and you go back and look at it. This is one of the things that you hate on about Matthew Golden. His yards per route run versus man to man, 0.92. It's one of the lowest in the class. Isaiah Bonds, the same thing. Texas receivers traditionally haven't been great versus teams who can play man. Most teams don't play a lot of man because they know they can't do it. But teams that can, they do. And you'll face more of those teams as you get deep into the playoffs. So that's one reason I think Sark knows I got to get a little bit more size out there. Maybe also, Coach, is it a preference for Arch? Now, I think everybody may have preferred the bigger wide receiver to the speed demons, but it seems like to me, maybe Arch, maybe some of the route tree is going to change a little bit, and maybe that's why you got a little bit more size because you're going to start running some of the routes that favor bigger targets. Is that possible?
Yeah, that's a good point. I still would love to have a little speed demon in there, though. I would still love to have a little guy that can take the top off.
Yeah.
If we could find one, but I understand what they're doing. I understand why they're doing it, and that makes perfect sense to me. But it's nice though if you got everybody, keyed in on those guys, and you slip somebody behind them that's got the speed to, go all the way with the ball. But I think he's doing it the right way. I think Texas is going to play more man coverage, and so I think they'll get more, practice. In one-on-ones against our guys, because that's bringing back the legend himself. That's he likes that man-to-man.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, no, that. And matter of fact, we'll talk about the player availabilities here in a second. But when Michael Taft was talking about, talking about players who stepped up, he brought up Rowan Roberson, who we'll talk about here pretty soon, and he specifically mentioned he's been good in man-to-man situations. So we know they're playing some man-to-man out there. I think they will play. I agree with Coach. They will play more man-to-man. But I think the bigger targets, bigger targets should help the deep ball conversions. And I was talking to somebody else about this. They said they wonder if it'll help red zone and third down too. Because in critical moments, that's when a lot of teams play man-to-man.
Yeah.
In the red zone, Coach, on third down, when they want to mix it up a little bit. And in those critical moments, maybe Texas is better converting those as well, red zone, third down, with the bigger wide receivers. So I'm kind of looking forward to it. Deep ball, scramble drill. Maybe that's Arch's preference. Maybe the routes change a little bit, bring back some comebacks, back shoulder fades, as CJ's been talking about, help you convert some of those critical moments, third down, red zone, or maybe just beat man-to-man more effectively. So we shall see.
And if you've got a freak like Ryan Wingo, who has the size, he has the speed, but he also has great body awareness and athleticism with his vertical, to go up and get balls. And, if any of these younger guys can transform into that as well, then you've got a bunch of guys that are going to be really, really hard to stop, because we saw flashes of Wingo making incredible plays last season.
Yep.
And even if the ball's thrown a little short or whatever, he has the athletic ability to out jump a DB, and the size to go get it. And so I think we haven't been that effective throwing the deep ball. So maybe there is a change in strategy and with the passing game. And you know what? We're just going to beat people one-on-one and quit trying to take the top off of it every other pass.
Yep. I would say teams are more likely. I think it's like teams are 40% more likely, NFL stat, to throw the ball deep when there's man-to-man coverage being played. So, and even Sark talks about it's crucial for them to convert those opportunities. And Arch, he likes the long ball. CJ, would you is this breaking news? Do we need a breaking news sounder here? Potentially. Do we have
get a little horn going, Matthew? We got something on the back end.
Is this real? Are we doing this? I need to know. I'm depending on you because CJ, he's obviously in the know a little bit more than me. Are we breaking news here, or I'm not?
We can bring up the report. 24/7 Sports has reported that there is a transfer defensive lineman on campus. We'll obviously work to learn more on that. That's something that was reported at the very beginning of this show. So it caught me a little bit off guard here. But hey, Lavon Johnson, defensive lineman out of Maryland, has played 2 years for Maryland, saw about 160 snaps a year ago for the Terrapins. He's about 6'2", 311 pounds, becomes draft eligible in a year and a half. So still pretty young in his, overall college playing days. Was a true freshman a year ago, true sophomore last year. Will be a junior this upcoming year. Spent 77 snaps over the B gap 45 actually over the tackle. So a lot of versatility in his game. We'll see what Texas does in terms of bringing him onto the roster. Of course, when Texas comes into building the defensive line, depth is a big key of that. We've talked about it last year. Right now, Johnson figures to be more a depth piece than a front line guy like a Cole Brevard that Texas brought in earlier in the spring or in the winter. So we'll see. We'll dig. We'll get a little bit of an update on that for you guys by the end of the show. But for now, that is the report from the Horns 24/7, and we'll work to get a little bit more in terms of whether or not he is the only guy on campus today.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. I know a lot of you guys out there have been asking about it, so we appreciate you guys inquiring about it. All right. We'll try to get you some updates. Okay. How about this one from Is420 somewhere? He says, has the Texas Athletic Department ever been as strong as it is right now? 9 teams ranked 1 this year. 9 teams ranked 1. Well, the Directors' Cups, which go to the best athletic program in the country, would say that Texas is the best athletic department in the country. I mean, that's why it's given out. So I right now, I don't know if there's anybody that can say they're better than Texas. Maybe there's a program out there doing it just as good, but there's no way that I've seen the last 3 years, really since CDC has got this thing really up and going, now bringing in Schloss and Vic Schaefer and Sark, of course, and some of the bigger name sports, that Texas right now isn't the best athletic department in the country. You'd be hard pressed to find somebody who doesn't agree with that.
Now, I know Tennessee folks would like to argue with it, right? They had a team make the college, football playoff. Their baseball team just won a national championship. Basketball went on quite a run as well. But holistically, I don't know how you could argue from top to bottom. It's pretty remarkable, right? Softball's number 3, baseball's number 1 this year. Football was in the Final Four once again. Women's basketball was in the Final Four. We've already talked about, tennis, golf, rowing, swimming, diving, all the championships that have come there. So from top to bottom, I saw the update on the Directors' Cup. Texas still out in front of Stanford, and I know that's what CDC cares about, is having that holistic approach in the athletics department. Look, there's also a little, I don't know if it's Directors' Cup or odd, but within the SEC, I know that there's like a little athletic department standings or something like that. So maybe we'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine if Texas is leading the Directors' Cup that they're going to be anywhere but number 1 in that SEC standing as well. But all in all, how can you not enjoy where Texas athletics is as a whole?
Feels like we're in a golden era of it, Coach. I remember mid-2000s, Texas hit one of them golden eras where it seems like all the sports were thriving, or at least most of them were thriving. It feels like we're there again. Obviously, everybody's waiting on Texas basketball, one of the last pieces that doesn't seem to be, performing to the standard. But, man, everywhere else, seems like Texas is pretty close to meeting that standard or pretty close to challenging that standard year after year.
Yeah, I think you look at basketball and the unfortunate change that we had. It's certainly put us behind, and we were hoping that we'd be able to still make some noise, but we've got to reset that program and but just think what's going to happen when they get strong.
Yeah.
They can get real good real fast. In my opinion.
Oh, Sean Miller, is he throwing out the first pitch today?
He is.
He is? All right, we got to get an update on that. I hope he's an athlete though, right? He guy played ball in college, right? He's an athlete.
A basketball guy. He's not used to a small ball, but we'll see.
Yeah, I know. I hope this would be my advice to him, because I've had to throw out a couple of first pitches, and I didn't want to make a fool of myself because you guys know I do not have great hand-eye coordination. I'm not a baseball player. But I went out and practiced. There was a local field. I went out and threw, I don't know, Coach, about 40, 50, and not throwing hard, just making sure I got the angle right. I didn't want to skip it. I didn't want to overthrow it. That was my only goal. I don't want to skip it to the mound because that's a little feminine, and I don't want to overthrow it because that's unathletic. It's like, man, you can't even look at.
You don't hit a camera guy in the nuts.
Yeah, you can't 50 Cent that one.
Yes, I didn't want to do either one of those. So I went out and practiced. I just wanted to get it where I can like just get it to them and not embarrass myself. And I did. So that's the key. These people that go out there and they embarrass themselves during the first pitch, no practice. I guarantee they went out there. It was the first time they threw a damn baseball in years. They don't go 50 cents. You're right, CJ. I don't know how they do it. Like, you don't go practice? Go practice. Come on, man.
You got to get the hook working. You got to hit them with a little,
Oh, no.
The curve.
No, I didn't try any of that, CJ. We just got it there. Simple, boom. I did not get booed.
That's probably good, Rob. The only pop you want to hear when throwing a first pitch is the catch, is the glove. You don't want to hear any pops in the elbow, the shoulder. That's probably not what you want.
No, I can't afford that these days. No, trust me. And I got shoulder issues anyway, so I couldn't put no twerk on it. I couldn't put no English on that thing. I just threw my shoulder out, something like that. All right. Thank you for the super chat. It's 420 somewhere. Really appreciate it. All right. Before we move on, let me thank another one of our sponsors. Thank our friends over at South Point Dodge, folks. That's right. South Point Dodge. They can help you get a real deal today with our friends over at South Point Dodge. South Point Dodge has over 600 vehicles in stock right now, folks. 600. That's right. Including a great selection of Ram 1500s, 2500s, and 3500s. And they also have that new 2025 Jeep Wrangler there at South Point Dodge. Now you can go check out their inventory for yourself off of I-35 in South Austin, or you can go online, make it easy on yourself, and go to southpointdodge.com, and you can check out their fantastic inventory there as well. And what I love about this South Point Dodge deal these days, folks, they're going to offer you the employee incentive prices. They're the fancy way of saying you get the employee discounts. So if you shop at South Point Dodge right now, we're looking for a car or a truck or a new car, used car. Maybe you look for something to trade in. Right now, you get employee incentive pricing right now at South Point Dodge. So you pay what the employees pay. You won't get a better deal than that. That is the real deal you get at South Point Dodge. So go to southpointdodge.com to learn more and get to the point with our friends over at South Point Dodge, Austin's automotive everything, southpointdodge.com. All right, let's get to another super chat here from Travis. He says, he said an ex-OTF reporter said Texas views Aaron Butler as a future first or second rounder. Is he the speedster, and why don't we hear much about him? Okay, Aaron, but I know he's a speedster. Maybe he's the fastest guy in the wide receiver room. Think about that. He could be first or second round pick. I don't know. I mean, that's lofty praise with the wide receiver being the deepest position, in my opinion, probably in football at any level. I mean, Xavier Worthy barely made it. Like, he's barely scratching into that first round. Matthew Golden is going to, be a first round pick this year, but this has actually been seen as one of the least talented or most shallow wide receiver classes in a while. Like it's not considered, or at least it's not considered very talented at the top of it. It's probably deeper as you go through it, but it's not considered very talented at the top of the wide receiver class. So nothing against Matthew Golden, but I don't know if previous years, if he's drafted as high, if there are more talented wide receiver groups. But Aaron Butler, what are your thoughts, guys, about Aaron Butler? Do we think he is someone that maybe has been undersold, that we're not really talking enough about him?
I'll say this for first and second round wide receivers. Normally by year two, you hear of them in the mix, right? That's typically where you see a lot of that growth is from year one to year two. If they're not contributing year one, well, that year two jump is typically where you see it. Matthew Golden, again, a little bit different because he's behind Tank Dell. That offense he used his sophomore year wasn't great. They didn't have a great quarterback back there at the time, a lot of injuries. So you were sitting around 400, 500 yards, yet still, at least in the rotation, right, on the field. I'm looking at some of the first round guys expected this year. We mentioned Matthew Golden. Look, Luther Burden was 1,000-yard guy his sophomore year. Ted McMillan went for 1,400 his sophomore year. So, you see that impact right now. I'm seeing and hearing of two true freshmen who are actually in that starting rotation over Butler. So we'll wait and see if that turns into anything more substantial. But right now, I just continue to hear that there's coming along, just development in place right now for Aaron Butler, first and second round. I'd love to be wrong, but right now that's not really close to what I'm hearing in terms of where he is in the pecking order. So we'll see. But right now, what is it? 4 practices remaining, 1 tonight. big scrimmage tonight for the Longhorns. We put that out this morning from Bobby Burton.
Okay.
Maybe that's the turn, and that would be great for Texas.
You know, you think about other players that came on strong. Gunnar Helm is a guy that we weren't expecting a whole lot from. I remember distinctly just calling him a guy, just a jag, you know, he's just a guy, you know, he's serviceable. But wow, did he ever turn the corner when the spotlight was on him? And I doubt, with the lack of we just haven't heard a whole lot of talk about this receiver coming out of training camp this spring. And he as far as I know, he hasn't got many first team reps. And so, as you said, when freshman guys are getting reps above you, I think it would be a stretch at this point to try to predict someone being a second or third round receiver when you know, there's freshmen that are now, they're good freshmen, but apparently freshmen getting more snaps in spring ball with the ones that he is.
And Coach, I'll even go back a year, right? You know, when we were at this point with Texas last year, you know, it was supposed to be the emergence of a Jonte Cook, and then Texas goes out and they add, you know, Isaiah Bond, and they add a Matthew Golden. Well, you know, you have that leg up if you're Jonte. You're in the system. You've been throwing with Quinn Ewers for 2 years. You're supposed to know this, right? And for whatever reason, it just kind of felt like it never really materialized, right? It was DeAndre Moore that took the jump. It was DeAndre Moore that was at practice before anybody else, getting reps on the jugs, doing whatever. And then as spring continued, you started to hear, okay, that starting rotation is going to be some sort of mix of an Isaiah Bond, a Ryan Wingo, a DeAndre Moore. And you're like, wait a minute. I've not yet heard of the name that I was expecting. And I think that's what's happening a little bit now. And again, it's not to say that this is set in stone, right? This certainly could change by week one. It's just the sense that, again, I mentioned it, that starting three that I've seen and heard trotted out with that first unit the most is Parker Livingstone, Dalen McCutcheon, and Jamie French, whereas it was kind of the expectation that that sophomore wide receiver in year two in the same system with the familiarity with the backup quarterback from a year ago would be making the leap. And again, it's just not yet materialized. So we'll see. But right now, I would kind of angle it more towards some of those guys Texas has, you know, on the sideline injured or coming in with him at Mosley versus, you know, kind of what's buried on that chart right now.
And this was the spring for a young wide receiver to make a move.
Absolutely.
Right, with Ryan Wingo being hurt and then DeAndre Moore not participating. I mean, this was the one where they kind of, I bet, opened it up a little bit and gave guys a shot. So we'll see. But another scrimmage tonight, I'm sure some guys will be trying to separate in this next scrimmage. All right, let's hit Jay Lee. Jay Lee has a question in a super chat. Thank you, Jay Lee. We appreciate your super chat. Says, if we are going to win a natty, don't we need a year where we don't lose so many redshirt sophomores and juniors to the draft? Seems like we're stuck in a cycle of replacing starters and unable to stack quality depth. Thank you, Jay Lee. That is a good question. Now, everybody else is dealing with this. Now, I'm sure at one point you can, you know, maybe some guy decides to stay an extra year and nobody thought, but this is a problem that that everybody's dealing with now, right, Coach? I mean, this is a first world problem.
Yeah.
This is, but everybody's got to deal with this. So what's the solution? Because I think Jay Lee makes a point here. You know, you're going to kind of, if you have to keep replacing guys, then you do have to go through those growing pains. And I don't know if you ever break through, or at least you don't break through quick enough that way. How do you end this cycle of replacing starters that Jay Lee's talking about?
Well, you got to know, first of all, when you're recruiting, the level of players that we're recruiting, and if they are as successful as we think they're going to be when they're signed, yeah, they're going to go early into the draft. I mean, that's just what happens when you have great players. But those great players and those players that are getting drafted high are going to open the door for you to get more quality receivers in, because they know they can come in here for a couple of years and then be drafted in possibly in the first or second round. I'm talking about as a portal transfer guy. Obviously, we've had some come in and have a lot of success with 1 year, you know, on the team. But yeah, I think it, you know, like you said, it's a first world problem, and it's something that I mean, what would you rather not have? You know, good enough guys that are going to be taken their redshirt sophomore or junior year in the draft, or guys that are going to be there for 5 years because they're not worth a crap. You know, yeah, I'd rather have the problem that we have, but I think that, most student athletes, not all of them, but most of them, if they're 4 and 5 star guys, they're wanting to get to the league as quick as they can.
Yep.
You know, so with the turnover that we have with guys going to the league early, it creates opening and, on the field for positions that are up for grabs, and guys, they know they can come in and get some playing time early, hopefully. And if they're good enough, then they can go as a redshirt sophomore or junior in the draft. And the recruiting is just on a shorter cycle.
Yep. I think you just hit it, Coach. I think you just start the clock earlier. That's one of the ways that you try to combat that, right? That's why they're coming in as early enrollees now. Come in early enrollees, and let's start the clock early. And to your point, those guys getting to the NFL, developing that pipeline, that's going to inspire younger, better players to want to go to Texas so that they can go to the NFL. And hopefully those better players are able to play earlier. What you need are more Colin Simmons.
Yeah.
But you need more Anthony Hills.
Yeah.
You need them more, you know what I mean? You need those guys who, all right, you know what, as a freshman, if he's good enough, he's old enough. And you get enough of those guys, then you get 3 years with him, as opposed to getting that 1 year with a guy. Now, another way to combat this is the transfer portal. You just bring in a Matthew Golden, bring in an A.D. Mitchell, you know what I mean, when you don't necessarily have the talent you stacked, that proven commodity stack, because you lost a lot of guys to the NFL. And I think, I think another way for you to, I don't know if you combat it, but the quarterback position specifically, you got to be able to stabilize that. And Sarkis done a great job of stabilizing QB, because that's the biggest, we talking about turnover and losing guys. You lose that, then ain't no damn way you're going to be in championship competition. You got to stabilize that. You're going to lose a lot of other stuff, skill position. Look at what Texas is doing. But if you can try to keep that QB stabilized and he give you multiple years of a starter, that honestly, that's like half the battle. That's half the battle right there. And Sark has done a great job of that. Did it with Quinn, and he's doing it with Arch. Everybody's expecting Arch to have 2 years starting.
Yeah.
So those are the ways you kind of combat it, in my opinion. But Jay Lee, I think Coach is right. This is part of being a great program, where it's going to be tough at times because you're going to lose great players. You want to try to maximize. Like, if you think Colin Simmons is so special, he could be a top 5 pick, and you think Arch Manning is so special, he could be a top 5 pick. Well, you need to go all in these next 2 years.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, because so when you do find them 2-3 special guys, you go, all right, guys, this is when we do it. Transfer portal, NIL, let's go all in during these Arch years, Arch and Colin Simmons, and then let's try to break through.
And it's going to be weird, but I hate to look this far ahead because I know that this 25 team is going to be super talented, but I can't help but think that 26 team is going to be just over the top.
Yep.
And again, if Arch does come back, he'll be a second-year starter. You'll have a third-year Colin Simmons. Who knows, what a third-year Wingo looks like, I just can't help but think that number 1 recruiting class coming into year 2 fully would be just defensively just unreal, really. I mean, look, Jonah Williams, Ellis Hicks on the back end. We talk about 5-star Cade Phillips out at cornerback, replacing Manny Muhammad. The front 7 was as good as a front 7 haul that I've seen Texas take since I started covering recruiting. And that's with 3 guys on the defensive front that I don't think Texas has had similar bodies with, maybe in Alex January, but that's really the only one. Sadir Mitchell didn't pan out. He was a little bit big, never really got into shape. But look, I think you're going to have those pieces that you want from the inside the building, right? You don't have to go out to go get them. And so, again, I'm excited for 25, but I can't help but think that 26 might be the best overall team that Texas has had since 23 when all this run started.
Yep, I agree with you on that, CJ. I hated to say it too, but I was like, if it win a national title this year, God, that's amazing. I mean, I would love that.
Yeah, and if that's the case, throw my argument out the window.
But if you ask me to put money on, what year I think Texas is going to win it all, I would put money on that 2026. I'm with you. I feel like that year, I feel like a lot of your big dogs are going to be maturing at the right time. To their point, though, so Jay Lee, basically, if you're an elite program like Texas and Ohio State, if you say you're going to lose great players year after year, so that's why it's going to be hard for you to stack talent. And then if you're on a middle to lower class, all right, of college football, then you can't stack talent because the transfer portal, they keep leaving because they want to go play. for the Texas and Ohio State to say. So nobody can really stack a lot. It's hard to stack it like you used to. It is really tough to stack. And then all the agents who are also now representatives, they represent you at the college level, become your agent when you become a pro. So they're advising you about both. And they're telling you need to get to the NFL quicker. There's a salary cap as a rookie cap, only so much money you can make with the first contract. Your second contract, that's your money contract. The sooner you get to it, the sooner we can start that clock. And that's why they're the same guys telling them, hey, you need to enroll early. The sooner we start the NIL clock, the better. Because they want to start their money clock. I don't get paid, young man, till you get paid. So I need you to get paid. So that's why it's going to be hard for everybody to stack talent. To this point, I saw this from Bill Connolly. He said he's been tracking returning production for years. He says now since 2021, when returning production totals peaked, that was like the COVID stuff, extra year COVID eligibility, all that kind of stuff. He said the national averages have sunk by 23 percentage points for returning production. He said it's starting with a significant drop in 2022. And he said this year, 2025, he said it is projected to have the lowest returning production total. He said he's been tracking it since 2014. And he said you are closing close to some of the lowest returning production totals that he's ever had. That's going to continue to drop because lower tier schools, they can't keep good talent because they leaves. And the big time schools can't keep good talent because it's going to the league. So it's a vicious cycle. All right, let's get some more questions. Oh, how about this one from Jay? Another from Jay Lee. Jay Lee, we appreciate the love. He says, how's Phil Samey? Haven't heard his name this spring. How's Phil Samey doing? Phil Samey, I haven't heard a lot about him. And that was one of those guys I was hoping, because I was listening to Michael Taft. We'll talk about player availability here in a second. And he brought up that old Coach Akina saying that I brought up several times, Coach, the best 5 DBs going to play. And I don't give a damn if there's 4 safeties in one corner. I'll figure out a way to make it work. Right. And I thought that maybe, Phil Samey could be one of those guys that earns the trust of the coaches and maybe challenges to be a starter, another starter caliber player for you in the secondary. But I will admit, I haven't heard anything about him. So I haven't heard anything bad, but I haven't heard anything good. I haven't heard his name mentioned from any of the players at the availabilities. I haven't heard Sark throw it out there casually when talking about the young players. We haven't reported much about it. So I'll admit, Jay, I don't know where he is right now in the overall kind of pecking order. CJ, do you have any?
It's still coming along.
Okay.
I talked about the speed of the game, making sure that your body follows your eyes and your eyes are in the right place as a safety. I think that's one of the big keys for him as he continues to take that next step forward. That's not an easy thing, right? Especially, coming from McKinney. I know you think DFW, you think passing the ball, kind of those spread offenses, but McKinney's entire forte while he was there, ask Riley Pettijohn, it was about that front seven, that run stuffing, very physical style of football. So for a lot of Phil Samey in high school, he was asked to run the alley. He was asked to be kind of a box guy rather than a true deep center fielder back at safety. So it takes time at the next level when the route concepts get a little bit more sophisticated, when you got guys that, are crossing your face just as quickly, if not faster than you are. You can't catch up, when guys – Rod, they essentially go from looking like me to looking like you, right? They're quicker, they're faster. They got to step on you like that otherwise you would have been able to, make up really quickly. So that's the next step. He's getting run with the twos, and I think that's where he should be right now. Of course, you got Jelani McDonald, you got Michael Taft returning. That is your starting tandem. Now it's just about consistency reps with that second unit to become a reliable piece for the fall. That way, of course, you stay ahead of a Zelisix, you stay ahead of a Jonah Williams, and you stay in that trajectory to be on the field often as a true sophomore.
Okay. No, good stuff there, Jay Lee. We appreciate it. Let's thank another one of our fantastic sponsors before we move on and answer a few more questions as we approach the end of the show. You've tried flying. You've probably tried driving and trying to reach the major Texas cities, right? It can be a bit stressful. It can be a bit of a hassle, especially if you're talking about flying, because you got to deal with security lines and you deal with the packed gates and delayed flights and you deal with the ridiculous overpriced items in an airport, all for what, a 60-minute flight. It is just not worth the stress levels. And driving isn't much better. You ever tried that same day round trip between Dallas and Austin or Houston and DFW? That's hours of lost productivity, emails piling up, calls going unanswered, and work left undone, all while trying to focus on the road with traffic jams. Why waste the day when you can stay connected and productive with Von Lane? Von Lane changes everything. It's luxury regional bus travel, what some call a private jet on wheels. You'll sink into a plush leather seat with a leg rest, stay connected with complimentary Wi-Fi, enjoy complimentary snacks and drinks on every trip. They also have delicious meals on select departures. If you need to freshen up, you can indulge in hot towel service. If you want to relax, they have eye masks and pillows and blankets to keep you cozy. The Von Lane team takes care of every detail so you can sit back, relax, unwind, and enjoy the best and most comfortable travel experience on the road. Business travelers, you can recapture lost productivity. Leisure travelers, you can sit back, relax, and get pampered by the Von Lane team. And if you're planning a special guys trip, gals trip, bachelor party, bachelorette party, football game, concert, or special event, you can charter your own Von Lane coach for the ultimate group experience. Von Lane, first class travel without the hassle. See for yourself. Visit vonlane.com. That's VONLANE.com, and use the promo code OTF25 for $20 off your first trip with vonlane.com. Thank you very much to Von Lane for being sponsors of On Texas Football and sponsoring the winning drive. All right, getting back to some questions here. David says, it seems the most competitive room is corner right now. I've literally heard great things about every single corner fighting for a starting job. That's a good point. That'll take us to some of the player availability discussion because, multiple guys brought up Warren Roberson. The corner, obviously competing for that corner spot opposite of Malik Muhammad. Anthony Hill brought him up about guys who were standing out. Michael Taft was very talked about. Was very complimentary of him as well. We've heard Sark bring him up and talk about Warren Roberson. So it does seem that Warren Roberson is definitely standing out, making a move. They've been very complimentary of Kobe Black. Kobe Black has been mentioned several times by the coach and other players. I think Anthony Hill also mentioned Kobe Black and how well he was looking. And I've heard things about obviously about Hill, the young freshman coming in, that he's looked really good. Grayson Littleton got some love. Michael Taft too. But it does seem like the cornerback room, even if they don't figure out CJ who's going to be the starting corner opposite Malik Muhammad this spring, they're definitely going to have options after they get done with spring.
Yeah, 100%. And, to David's comment here, I mean, I'm right there with it. I've heard all sorts of good things about each individual guy so far, and I think that's great because – I don't want to say it was a concern last year, but you didn't quite know who would be your third guy. Would it be a Gavin Holmes? Would it be a Javion Cole? Would it be, the true freshman Kobe Black? And, you saw some Gavin Holmes and Rod. I thought he actually had a pretty solid back end of the season, especially when Texas went to those NASCAR packages, relying on him on the outside, moving Jade in. He did well, but it took a while before that was truly deployed for the Longhorns on the field this year. It certainly feels like you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 deep in terms of guys that have truly had springs worthy of getting on the field in the fall. And that's great, right? We talked about replenishing depth. Well, that room is probably in the healthiest position of just about anybody on the field, right? Or any position room in the facility. Jalen Gilbo moving out wide. He's working right there with Kobe Black for reps in the first team. And then you got Warren Roberson, who in man coverage sounds like has really found a home and really found a niche spot for himself in this rotation. And of course, I can't forget Cade Phillips, Santana Wilson, both of those guys making names early on. But yeah, very healthy room, lots of competition. And, I start to wonder what that rotation might look like this fall, but I can't help but think there's going to be plenty of talent all in all.
And we know a lot of them will play early. Right, Sark has already said going to play a lot of young guys early. I think at that cornerback spot early on, I think you may see a lot of young guys, see who responds, and if they can end up deepening the rotation. Because they did that early on last year, and then they decided they were going to, really focus on just their key guys in the secondary and play those guys for the most part. I wonder how deep they'll go in the secondary, considering all the names that we've heard, and with all the cross training going on with guys playing different positions too. All right. Thank you for the question, Dave. We appreciate it. CB here says, doesn't Sark have a retention analyst on the staff or something like that? Yes, there is. I believe his name, Jordan Mitchell. Is he the retention strategy guy, recruiting and retention strategy? They may have someone else, but I know he was one of the names that specifically was given that title of retention, and which I don't even know what does a retention analyst do? I mean, I know what he's in charge.
He's the guy that gets called in and get his butt chewed out when somebody gets in the portal. That's who he is. That's not a job I would want to have. Can you imagine? It's a thankless job. It's a thankless job because they're supposed to stay there, and you're in charge of the retention, not letting these guys,
That's
leave.
good.
Yeah, that's the guy who's going to get his butt chewed out. You got to have the blame game somewhere.
Coach got to cuss somebody out for it. So yes, shoot. That is great. I love it because honestly, that sounds about right. Oh man, good stuff.
Basically, Coach, this just sounds like a target for Sark. When he gets mad, that kid or whoever just gets thrown stuff at like that.
Yeah.
Why is he leaving?
Or hey, why did you talk this guy into staying? He sucks.
Right. You should have let him leave. You can't win, Coach. You can't win. You should have let him leave.
Yeah, there's some of them we might not want to retain. So I wonder if that guy is responsible for that too.
He's too good at his job if that's the case.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I'm saying.
Oh man, now I feel bad for Jordan Mitchell. I feel bad for him now. All right, good stuff there, guys. Yes, seriously. Okay, how about this one from Ryan? He says, Coach Rod B and CJ, are you very confident that Texas will be the number one defense in the SEC for a second straight year? I think Texas is definitely number one. I do think OU is the sneaky pick for number two. Yeah, Brent Venables going to have that defense, right? That's good, but will it be the best defense in the SEC? There you go. That's a good question. Thank you, Ryan. Good question.
Yeah, that's a good
question.
I'm
not ready to go there yet. I'm not ready to say that yet.
I'm with you, Coach.
Yeah. I'm going to say yeah.
I don't know
why I'm so confident. I shouldn't be this confident. I'm going to say yeah.
The big thing for me is communication in the back end. Texas was probably the best Texas defense that I've seen in recent memory. And again, I don't go as far back as you guys or many guys in the chat, but I'll say this, there were not many busted coverages last year, and it was all felt like it was in sync. That secondary, that back wall, I call it, between your safeties and your corners, whatever the coverage is, it felt just so sturdy, and I think that's something that only you get to that point because of continuity. Mm-hmm. We'll see what that looks like with no, Andrew Makuba, Jade Barron, guys who have played a lot of football. That chemistry they had in the 5-1-2 crew. We'll see how that's replicated. But also, and I know I've reported on Texas football earlier today that the defensive line's holding their own in spring scrimmages so far. They're doing well in outside zone, mostly with those two big bodies on the interior with Cole Brevard, Travis Shaw, Hero Canoe. Alex January, they're holding the point of attack for linebackers to scrape, for edges to crash, whatever it might be. What do they look like against a team that's not Texas, right? And they're going to get tested immediately against Ohio State, but I just want to see more, right? Yeah. So they're going to be talented. They're going to be in that conversation, but for sure, number one, no, I'm not putting my finger on that just yet.
I don't know why I'm confident. I feel good. I just feel Texas never had the combination of best pass rusher in the country, best off-ball linebacker in the country, who's also the best pass rushing off-ball linebacker in the country. I think it's a lot of good places to start with the defense. But you're right. Saying they're the best defense in the SEC, that is, that's a lot. They'll face better quarterbacks this year, too. That's important.
That's true.
They faced some terrible quarterbacks. This year, they faced veteran quarterbacks. Even that kid Mateer from Oklahoma, transferred from Washington State. He's going to be a veteran. Marcel Reed, veteran in that system now multiple years. Was it Taylon Green from Arkansas? Diego Pavia has been in that system for like 4 years now. They'll face better quarterbacks, and we saw what a better quarterback can do against a good defense. So good question, Orion. All right, let's thank our last sponsor of the evening before we get ready to end today's program. Our friends at My Athlete 360. Opportunity, innovation, and focus all meet at My Athlete 360. The future of youth sports is here, and early adopters are already winning. For coaches and trainers, My Athlete 360 is your gateway to growth for yourself and the organization you represent. showcase your expertise, and connect directly with families actively seeking your skills, all without expensive marketing costs. For parents, we bring trusted athletic opportunities right to your fingertips with customizable filters for age, sport type, and budget that will match with your child and match your child with the perfect coach or a trainer. Whether you're a coach building a thriving business, a volunteer coach looking to bring new kids into your youth organization, or a parent seeking quality training, My Athlete 360 makes the connection simple and secure. Don't miss out on the platform that's revolutionizing youth sports development. Download My Athlete 360 today. Your competitive advantage awaits. You also can scan that QR code right there on your screen, and you can get the My 360 app that way as well. All right. Thank you guys for all of the questions. I'm going to end today's show a little bit early, but thank you guys for all the questions. Thank you guys for the super chats as well. Really appreciate it. Matthew behind the scenes, always the real MVP. So appreciate all of his hard work. Thank you, CJ, for all of the nuggets and the expertise. Coach, thank you for the wisdom and the levity as always. If we missed anything or any questions, please direct them to the guys at Coffee and Football tomorrow morning, bright and early at 8:15 with Jerry and with Bobby. And also we'll have our 1 p.m. live stream tomorrow, and I'll be there with Bobby and Jerry as well. We'll have some fun there. So if you missed anything, just direct it to us. And I'm sure if there's anything that breaks in between, we'll have your back. We'll be talking about it right here on the On Texas Football platform or at OnTexasFootball.com. For CJ and for Coach and for Matthew, I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Until next time, hook 'em horns.